and 2 describes something that is coming in the fall of 2017. And what it is it's a constellation and planet alignment that has never happened before and it won't happen again. It's very specific, and it's been found in an astronomy program. I was looking for it in 2011, and then I put it on the internet, and here we are today. It's got a lot of peer review. It's not going away. It's just getting bigger.
Oh, it is. I mean, I had an interview with David Mead over a year ago, and he touched on that date. There's been a lot of other people that have used that information. I know I had Jason Jeffries on the show a while back that kind of showed the charts and the stars, the signs in heaven that correlate to Revelation as well. There's a lot of talk about Planet X, Wormwood, Nemesis, the Red Kachina, Nibiru, whatever name you want to put towards this. Let's talk about some of the charts and data you have put together for 2017, because what you showed me off air that just blew my mind, and I know it's on your YouTube channel as well, Eternal Rhythm Flow.
Sure. Yeah, I've been looking into because of this planet star constellation alignment is it's in the Bible, and it has to do with the end times. The scriptures say that John, when he's called up to heaven to have this vision of the final 7 years, he says one of the things that he sees up there, he says there's a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon at her feet and 12 stars at her head, but she's in labor and labor pains to give birth to a child. And then it says that that child that she gives birth to is going to be caught up to God and to his throne. But it actually uses, when it says caught up in Revelation 12:5, it says the Greek word is harpazo, and that's the word that we get rapture from. But it also says that there is a dragon in the scenario. This is an end time play, and that dragon tries to devour the child when it's born, but he doesn't get the child because the child is raptured. But then Michael stands up and he goes to war with the dragon, and this is the tribulation period. So we're looking at a rapture tribulation stuff in this chapter. And what's amazing is that John says it happens with our sun, our moon, our stars, and the wandering stars are our planets. So this isn't just a dreamy thing. This is real. And so what do astronomers and researchers do? They look at this stuff in astronomy programs, telescopes. It's real. And it just so happens that in 2017, what looks like what John wrote is actually in the sky in our lifetime.
Well, that's wild. And if that actually happens, do you think that there's going to be earth changes, cataclysms, chaos, etc. here?
Yes. In reading the book of Revelation, it does say that at the time when these events happen, when the sign happens, all inside this time period, I mean, the elites are going to be hiding in the mountains and the caves because the cataclysms, there's 4 horsemen that come out, there's war and pestilence and economic disaster. And then, I made a video yesterday, and we know, Gil Broussard, David Mead talk about Planet X. You talk about Planet X. You've been doing this for a long time. And anyone who's done any research about that knows that if this planet is, let's just say, 10 times the size of Earth, and if it gets too close to us, the magnetic pull is going to make some changes. There's going to be earthquakes and possible flooding and all that. So if all of this is what it looks like, 2017 is a year of some changes.
Astrophysicist, I think Mike Brown from Caltech, came out several years ago and downgraded Pluto with several other astrophysicists, essentially. And now he's out saying that there is this ginormous planet outside of the Kuiper Belt that's so big, it's actually causing the solar system to tilt. And it's way, way, way out there. So if something is closer than that object, or, something actually gets even within a certain distance, I guess, like Pluto or something, I can't even imagine what type of catastrophic events could take place. And there's a lot of people that feel Planet X is a lot closer than that. Personally, I am still agnostic towards it being in the solar system because I haven't seen enough proof that it is for sure. Now, is there a Planet X out there? Well, I mean, definitely there's plenty of other planets out there, but I still am kind of questioning the whole 3,600-year orbit. But it seems like there's a whole bunch of information out there that's pointing to some pretty serious possibilities from some enormous planets that we haven't seen the past X amount of years.
Right. A lot of what we do in sort of studying this Planet X thing is we have to put our faith in other researchers because it's a massive subject and not everybody has the time to go there. So, we look to the experts and we see what they think, and then we have to make a decision on, is this real or not? And depending on the weight of evidence, this is not something that we can see with the naked eye. We just got some programs, Google Skyview, and when we're looking at these things, we just have to take it with a grain of salt and say, is it there, or is NASA just playing with us? Who knows?
Right.
But so it's one of those things where you're just not going to know until it happens. But it certainly is an interesting subject that we like to talk about.
It is, and I really like the way that you brought that up and the way you worded that. I think that was very eloquent and balanced, and that's awesome. Now, you also put together some really cool charts that you were showing me that had some different timelines that also correlated with this 2017 date. And if we could get into that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure.
So you did this all yourself, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, the information is just history, but I put it on a timeline to take a look at it. The Bible says that because the Jews rejected their Messiah, that they would be dispersed, their temple would be destroyed, but a new dispensation would take place, and that the Father would put his attention on the church, which are Christians, but then he's going to put his attention back on the Jews to bring them back to himself. And this prophecy was given in Daniel 9:24. It's the prophecy of Daniel's 70 weeks. And the 70th week has not been completed yet. The 69 weeks from that prophecy have been completed when Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. But then he was cut off. His crucifixion, his death, burial, resurrection, the gospel occurred. That's what the gospel is those three things. And then the church was conceived at Pentecost, and so things changed. However, when the church is taken out, the rapture, the bookends is Pentecost was the conception of the church, and the rapture, I believe, happens on the Feast of Trumpets, which are the bookends of this church age dispensation. And once the church is gone, then the Father will put his attention back on the Jews. It's a time of judgment to reprimand them, but to bring them back to himself and to prove to him that they were wrong about who the Messiah was, because they didn't believe that Yeshua, Jesus, was the Messiah. So we've got this one final week, which is a period of 7 years that is coming, which is going to be a time of judgment. If you read the book of Revelation, and also Daniel, all the prophets, Joel, Ezekiel, Isaiah, they all talk about this day of the Lord, which is pretty harsh. But we know that he's going to these things take time. He's going to slowly bring Israel back into their land, into Israel. And that's what this timeline shows here. Theodore Herzl, back in 1897, down here at the bottom, he created a Congress to begin bringing the Jews back to their homeland, which was prophesied for them to be their promised land. And Theodore Herzl, he says he's the creator and the head of the World Zionist Organization for its first 7 years. And he wrote in his diary on September 3rd, 1897, just after this Congress met together, he said, "Were I to sum up the Basel Congress," this is Basel, Switzerland, is where they met. He said, "If I were to sum up the Basel Congress in a word which I shall guard against pronouncing publicly, it would be this: at Basel, I founded the Jewish state. If I said this out loud today, it would be greeted with universal laughter. But in 5 years, perhaps, and in certainly 50 years, everyone will perceive it." That's the beginning of this timeline over here, 1897. Now, what I should preface is that there is also a prophecy of 120 years. And if we look in Luke, the Messiah said that the end times are going to be just like it was in the days of Lot and Noah. And as we know, Lot was removed from a judgment that was going to happen to Sodom and Gomorrah. Fire rained down, fire and brimstone. So he was righteous, and so he was removed. He didn't have to go through that. Noah also was the only righteous man on the planet back then. The earth was destroyed with water, but he was safeguarded through that so he could repopulate. So there's going to be this separation of people who are going to get judged on, and those who escape it. But Jesus also said in Matthew 24, he said there's a lesson of a fig tree. The fig tree is Israel, and this is a parable, an analogy of Israel coming back into the land. He says, from the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as the branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. Also, when you see all these things, and he was just describing the beginning of the tribulation period, you know that it is near at the very gates. Truly, I say to you that this generation shall not pass away until these things take place. So there is a generation coming that will see the end times, but it's the generation that sees the fig tree blossom. So that's what this has been called over here, is the first budding of the fig tree, 1897. So it's but there's got to become a finalization of that. Now, so we're looking at, and also in Genesis, God told Noah that 120 years before the flood, he said that I will not strive with man, for his days are 120 years. And so that was a prophecy of 120 years before the flood. Well, if we look at this number 120, it means in the Bible down here, it's a divinely appointed period of probation. Well, if we count 120 years, we end up the 0 year is 2017. And this is the fig tree coming, Israel coming back into their land. The Balfour Declaration was declared in 1970, which allowed the Jews to start coming back into Israel. And then the UN General Assembly voted to create Israel in 1947. And of course, the Arabs didn't like that, and so they went to war in 1948. You have the Battle of or the War of Independence, of which Israel was created in one day there. But then in another 20 years, you had 1967. In 1947 and 1948, Israel got the ability to get the land back, called Israel again. But they didn't have the capital. The Arabs still controlled the capital, Jerusalem. Well, in 1967, that's what happened there. Another war, the Six-Day War, and they got their capital back. So they're getting more and more. They got the land, then they got the capital. But the Bible says that they've got to get the temple too. This is where we're at. We're in between these things. They don't have that yet. They don't have the Temple Mount. I think that's what's coming next. You bring it to another Jubilee cycle, which is another sort of divinely appointed period of time, which is 50 years. And there's another Jubilee in here, 1917 to 1967. That's a Jubilee. 1967 to 2017. That's a Jubilee. So if this pattern is correct of what's coming, everything happens on the sevens: 1897, 1917, 1947, 1967. These are all agreements with nations. What's the UN General Assembly going to do in 2017?
What are they doing? What aren't they doing?
Well, I've been looking at the news in the last just 2 days, and they are putting so much pressure, just this week, on dividing the nation of Israel and creating this two-state solution thing. Which, if we read Daniel 9:27, it says that there's going to be a covenant, a peace covenant, some kind of an agreement. That's also in 1 Thessalonians 5:3. It says that when the nation of Israel, when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes on them. And then it gives us as a clue when. It says, when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction comes on them as labor pains of a pregnant woman. What's that pointing to? Why did he write that? Right. Revelation 12.
Okay. Just like in the stars.
Why else would he say that?
It's interesting because you've heard this saying before, as above, so below. And I wonder sometimes things that happen in the stars, they use those reference points. It's talked about in scripture, and sometimes people will take it in a different, they'll take it literally like it's happening here on earth, and maybe it's both. I mean, maybe there's actually something like that happening here. This is a little bit far out, but maybe something like that will happen here on earth too. As that happens, somebody will be born here like the Antichrist or something. I don't know.
I think he's already alive and well. I mean, if he's got to confirm a peace agreement, if we're going to have this scenario take place in 2017, then he's already in the wings, whoever that might be. But you brought up as above, so below. People, in studying New World Order conspiracy theories, the Luciferian stuff, the Catholic Church, the Illuminati, we hear this phrase, as above, so below, Baphomet with his arms. That's actually true. It's not just some satanic little word. I mean, Satan always takes things that are true from God and twists it to his own ends, just like the zodiac, which you open up the paper and it's supposed to be all about you. But the reality is that that's in the book of Job, talking about the Pleiades, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, the Great Bear and the Little Bear. And then, God uses the Star of Bethlehem to show us that when Yeshua was born, he's using this other birth story of a child being born, which may be the rapture of the church. The word rapture is in this one, Revelation 12. So he's using, he made this stuff, but then Satan twists it to his own ends, and you've got, paganism. As above, so below is true. The Bible says that there is a temple in heaven. God's throne is in heaven, but these things were also created on earth, now not there. But there is a Jerusalem on earth, but there's also a Jerusalem in heaven. The Bible says that there will be a new Jerusalem coming down from heaven. So there is an as above, so below on the good side, as well as there's an as above, so below on the bad side.
Absolutely. It's this dualistic universe that we live in, right?
It's a duality. Yeah.
Now
the upside down.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. Now you also brought up the New Jerusalem from heaven, and I have done my best to decipher that. And it almost sounds like a spaceship built with these amazing emeralds and gold and all these other elements that we look at as relics and jewelry. What's your take on the New Jerusalem?
Well, it's got I think it's got 12 gates, and it's basically, it looks like a big cube. It says that its
Right.
breadth is the same as its height, is the same as its width. That it's a mystery. But apparently this is something that's going to come down during the final 1,000 years of Earth. I believe that the human story is a 7,000-year story. God said that he created the world in 7 days, but he rested on the seventh. He gave that instruction to the Jews, the same thing. There's a Sabbath rest. Well, what we're dealing with right now is 6,000 years, but then after the final hardships of the tribulation period, Yeshua will come back, and we will enjoy the final Sabbath millennium, the Sabbath rest of 1,000 years. And that is a time when he sets up his kingdom. And so it says that the New Jerusalem will be a part of that, and somehow it comes out of the heavens. It's interesting to ponder. But it's going to be a completely different time. We're not going to have the murder and the wars and the sin, and it's just going to be unlike anything else.
Well, it's also fascinating when it talks about the beings inside of the New Jerusalem that are surrounding the throned one, and the eyeballs that are all around their bodies and stuff. I wonder if that's actually going to be physical, like these, or if it's something more metaphoric. It's just such an enigma, and it's very fascinating to think about. But it sounds to me like we're possibly 2017. This could be the starting point of many sparks. And what else have you deciphered over the next several months, 2017, you feel are going to take place?
Well, that's a good question. It's interesting that this sign in the heavens in Revelation 12, 1 and 2, there is action involved in it. And the planet Jupiter, I believe, represents the child. The church, I believe, was conceived at Pentecost in Acts chapter 2, just after Jesus ascended to heaven. The Holy Spirit came down and conceived the church, just in the same way that it says in Matthew 1:18 that the Holy Spirit conceived the Messiah inside of Mary. So this is one of the Holy Spirit's jobs, is this conception. And the church age is the growth of this child, which must be born. And that, of course, is like a 2,000-year story. But I think what's happening is this Revelation 12 sign it's on already. It's begun. I believe it began November 20th of 2017, which is a little over a week ago from this recording. What happened is that Jupiter, which I believe represents the church, it's going to go and do a retrograde motion. It's going to do a loop inside of Virgo, but it had to begin somewhere. So it had to cross the line of Virgo, the side of Virgo, and that happened on November 20th. So that would be likened to a conception. And then from that crossing of the line, Jupiter passing into Jupiter, you would count until it comes out, and it comes out between her legs like a child being born after. And I calculated this years ago. I made a video on this, and it's 42 weeks from the crossing the first line to crossing the birth canal line, because it's in there for just over 9 months. And 42 weeks is a human gestation period. It's a long-term birth. Now, here's what's interesting, Rex, is that conception is not the time when there is hardships in a natural relationship. Man and woman come together, and she gets pregnant, and it's an exciting time. But it's not until about 4 weeks until the date of delivery, that's when the contractions begin. That's when real discomfort happens for the woman. And she just wants that baby out.
Right.
The baby actually, I should say, the sign comes together September 23rd, 2017. Only on one day does this picture of Revelation 1 and 2 happen. If we look back 4 weeks from that, there is a great eclipse that astronomers are looking at. August 21st, 2017, there is an eclipse that starts in the Pacific Ocean above by Oregon, and a total solar eclipse shadow will drape across the entire United States and get into the Atlantic just after it passes through South Carolina. So it's like it divides the country in half. It splits the country in half. It's another sign in the heavens. Blood moons have been known in history of the Jews as being harbingers for like a warning or a judgment or something like that. That's a total lunar eclipse when the moon goes through the shadow of the earth and turns red because of the atmosphere. But solar eclipses have been known in history and in mythology as being an omen or a warning or a harbinger for the Gentile nations. So is it possible in August that we will make a bad decision in voting against Israel? When the General Assembly gets together and starts to make these decisions about this Middle East peace process, because Hurricane Katrina, and there's a number of different cataclysms that have happened to the United States that can be related to decisions that our leaders have made against Israel. Judgments have come. Hurricane Katrina is a pretty amazing one to study.
Do you think that there was any, sorry to interrupt, I was just going to ask real quick, do you think that there was any influence via weather geoengineering with Hurricane Katrina?
I don't understand how all that works, but I would not. I first and foremost take the position of being a skeptic, but also secondly, I try to remain balanced.
Sure.
And with the position of who knows what technology they have and who knows what they will do with it. So I try not to blow things off as like, oh, that's total garbage, it's a hoax. Sure, I think there is weather engineering, HARP. I mean, the stuff that they put in our skies in the jet fuel, and oh yeah, there's evil, there's control. It's all about control, and they want something. What do you think about that?
I think they want to control everything. They want to control the weather. They want to control what people think. They want to control what people do. They want to, you've got 6 corporations that control over 90% of the media. And as much as I love to watch a good TV show and a good movie, I also know the subliminal programming that they put behind it, just because I was taught at a very young age. So I can watch a film and see what they're programming the masses to think. But at the same time, you've got to be aware of that kind of stuff. Otherwise, you can be a good lemming to the dark side and not even realize it, just because they've got you under their mind control spells, essentially, is what it comes down to. But I think if we use our knowledge the right way, and there's got to be some type of something behind the scenes, like if we just say, look, we do not accept what you're doing to us, we will not accept it. And I think if enough people said that, you wouldn't have to be violent, you wouldn't have to do something vicious, unless they felt so much in a corner. When I'm saying I'm referring to these psychopaths, the 0.0001% or whatever that controls the majority of these defense contractors and government officials and stuff. It's not the people in the government that are bad most of the time. I mean, there's bad apples everywhere. It's the people behind the scenes that you never see or very rarely see or hear about, that, in my opinion, are the ones kind of controlling a lot of this madness. But have you ever noticed, Scott, that when there are a lot of these events that take place are portrayed in movies and TV shows before they actually happen? All
the time. It's just so amazing. 9/11 was portrayed in a film before it happened.
Many.
And then you've got all this stuff with the Simpsons prophesying everything. It's absolutely amazing. And then, of course, there's the Illuminati playing cards.
Which I got a set today. By the way, I ordered a set. I spent about $100. I've got, 200 cards? There's a total of 500 or something total cards, but I've got the original 95 set, and I'm going to pull that out later today. Sorry to interrupt, but I just had to, man. You totally brought that up. That was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, there is something to that.
Like they're telling us what they're going to do before they do it, and if we accept it, then they can karmically get away with it. Is that what it could be?
Yeah, I think it's a mind game. If it's not that big of a surprise somehow psychologically, we won't fight against it because there's something inside of us that was like, well, of course that was going to happen. I sort of knew that. It's mind games.
Wow, that was a real powerful way to put it. The way you said that right there makes so much sense from a psychological standpoint, and not even a metaphysical standpoint or a mystical standpoint or a conspiratorial standpoint. The way that you worded that right there, just that hits home big time. That's great. So let's jump into more of Revelation because you're such an expert with Revelation. I kind of cut you off there a minute ago. I didn't mean to take us on a different path. I apologize about that. Let's get back into what's going on around us right now, the signs in the heavens, the signs in the news, etc.
Oh gosh, signs in the news. Well, like I brought up before, I think something that we really need to take a look at in this next year is going to be what is the decision that the nations make about Israel? Because God clearly says that land and certainly Jerusalem itself was given to the patriarchs. It was given to Abraham, then it was given to his son Isaac, and then it was given to his son Jacob. And Jacob's name was changed. Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and Jacob had 12 sons, which become the 12 tribes of Israel. That's the bloodline of that the promised land has been given to, and the Bible says that it will never be taken away from them. But it also says it will definitely be fought over because Abraham, he didn't just, that bloodline came through his wife, Sarah, which was also his sister. But that's the promised bloodline. However, Sarah was too old to have a child for quite a long time. And so Sarah had a handmaiden. Her name was Hagar. And she told Abraham and said, hey, go ahead and sleep with her and have a son because I'm too old. And so Abraham's first son was through Hagar, who was from Egypt, she was the daughter of a pharaoh, an Egyptian pharaoh. And so this son's name was Ishmael. And Ishmael is the father of the Arabs. So from Abraham, you've got two bloodlines, one through Sarah and one through Hagar. Then you've got, through Sarah, you've got Isaac and Jacob. But through Hagar, you've got Ishmael. And so one leg of Abraham is all the Hebrews, the Jews. The other leg is all the Arabs. So this is this massive family feud over this land. But it's very clear in the Bible who gets it and who it belongs to. But they're trying to create a two-state solution so both legs can have it. That's not what God wants. It's not to be shared. So I think that decision of a two-state solution is going to be epic. And if that's what happens in 2017 at the next major UN General Assembly, which always finalizes before the holidays in the fall, that's where they really make their push to get this done. We're going to be watching that this year. And another thing is that a lot of times wars and skirmishes always happen in the summertime. They don't seem to like to fight too much in the winter over there in the Middle East. So that's another thing that's coming in the next 6 months. Going to be watching that. The wars and the rumors of wars. Rex, and that brings up another point, is that there are certain wars that Bible prophecy students and scholars really are looking at. There's a war of Damascus being destroyed overnight, Isaiah 17. There is there's a war in Psalm 83, which has to do with multiple nations. And then there's Ezekiel 38 and 39 war, which I believe is a war that happens in the tribulation period. I think Isaiah 17 and Psalm 83 happened just around the beginning of that time frame. Look what's happening in Syria. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's been in the Bible this whole time, this epic thing of Damascus, Syria being destroyed overnight. And look at with everything else that's culminating into this time period right now. Russia is trying to back Assad, but Turkey wants to take Assad out. You've got Israel that's trying to stay out of it, but is going to be pulled into it. This is what I think we're looking at. This is a year of war. It's a year 5777, and the 7 in the Hebrew alphabet is it's like a sword. It's like war. Mark Biltz did a teaching on this recently, and he says that this is probably the year of these wars. So I think we're just looking at an incredible an incredible year ahead of us, which may finalize in some epic prophecy. I'm not a prophet. I'm just trying to decipher this myself. But we know that these things are culminating to a final end result. Is that what you're seeing as well?
It is. I mean, I'm looking at Syria right now and some images, and there's not a lot of stuff you can find of recent images on Google of what it looks like out there. But what you do see, I mean, it is in really bad shape. Now, I'm not sure if it was Damascus or another city in Syria that this person did some drone footage out there over the entire city, and it just looked like something out of Terminator 2 after Skynet blew it away with nukes. It just looked toast. It looked like Resident Evil type stuff. So if that was Damascus and what you're talking about, that certainly is another correlation that hits with the Bible prophecy and Revelation. Now, one of the things that I am kind of nervous about with Revelation and any book, when you've got 100 million people, 1 billion people, a lot of people, let's just use that term, focusing on something like that and saying, oh, this is prophecy, it's going to happen because it's been written. Well, they can also, in a sense, kind of co-create that prophecy, make it happen faster. I wonder also sometimes if the Bible has been tampered with to the point that, and it's funny, I'm going to use the term here, I'm going to play devil's advocate, but I wonder sometimes if the Bible has been tampered with to the point to where what we're reading about is actually false history. We're learning from the victors, not the people that lost, and we're kind of just little things that could be in there that could take us into a path that's very far off. I don't know. I really don't. I want to know. But have you ever questioned stuff like that?
Yeah, there's a new thing that came out recently called the Mandela Effect, which somehow says that, I don't understand it completely, but apparently it's some kind of a thing where I don't know.
Time travel mixing
Time
up
travel.
Yeah.
Like things have been changed. Things have been changed.
The cat's now a donkey.
Yeah. I mean, when we read the Bible in English, it's a translation. Anything that's not the original letters and books is a translation, and you're going to have translation errors, and some are worse than others. There's one Bible that's called the Message Bible, which is just like, I don't even know what I'm reading. I've got a copy of it over here, yeah, I use a translation often. I've got a shelf full of them, and I look at the different translations, and I also use concordances to try to go back to the Greek and go back to the Hebrew, and that's really the trick of Bible study. I use one that's called the Hallelujah Scriptures often. It's not what I go by 100%. It's not like God's preserved word like people do with certain translations. You got to look at it all and be a student. So, but I just find that just what's going on in the world is the same thing that this book has said. I want to show you something really amazing. Remember what I said about that peace and safety thing, talking about a peace deal? And 1 Thessalonians 5:3, it's pointing to a woman in labor.
Right.
Which if we understand what Revelation 12 is that's something that happens in the great clock that we live in, the stars, which puts it on a specific day, which happens to be one of the Jewish feasts, the Feast of Trumpets. You can't make this stuff up. But, Paul was saying that when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction comes upon them like a woman in labor. I think that he's using that terminology to point to something. The Holy Spirit spoke through him, so he would know that John would write that. Well, check this out. What I was just saying with Damascus being destroyed, it's Isaiah 17:1. It says the message concerning Damascus ceases to become a city and shall become a heap of ruins. If you go to the end of that chapter, verse 18, it says, in the evening there's alarm, and before the morning it's no more. This is the portion of those who plunder us, and the lot of those who rob us. Talking about Damascus, probably a nuclear attack. I didn't want to read the whole chapter on here, but that's the gist of it, and Bible scholars know it very well, that Damascus is prophesied to be destroyed overnight. Now, there's a cross-reference here, and that's Jeremiah 49, 23. It's the same thing, but now Jeremiah is talking about it. And listen to this. It says, concerning Damascus, Damascus has become feeble, and she's turned to flee, and trembling has seized her. Distress and pain have taken hold of her like a woman in labor. So now Jeremiah is pointing to something that seems to be like, what's he pointing at? Well, is he pointing at Revelation 12? Is he pointing at the day that Revelation 12 occurs in our clock that we live in? This is all over the scriptures, Rex. This thing, this weird usage of woman in labor. And the final time it's in the Bible it manifests as a heavenly sign in the book of Revelation, which seems to me that's what all these prophets have been pointing to this the whole time. And we just didn't know it because we didn't understand what Revelation 12 was. So is Damascus going to be destroyed in the fall of 2017? It's possible if wars start breaking out this year, and if a Middle East solution is being sort of, stretched out and a war has to take place. The reason for a peace deal is going to be because war happened. Somebody's got to step up and say, hey, stop. We can fix this, right? That's how I look at it.
It would be nice if enough people would actually stand up. Like you said, will it happen? Is it finally to a point where there's enough individuals out there that have joined forces to, kind of not only physically take a stand in a nonviolent way, but also mentally and spiritually? Because the more I think about it, Scott, we can do things to get out of this beast system that we're in. But it does certainly seem like just so many different levels. There's darkness out there. And I hate to be a pessimist, but you look at the food supply, you look at the medicines that are out there available to the Western society, the stuff that Monsanto does, and just all the GMOs and the pain and the suffering and the stuff they put in vaccines that they force feed babies. And it's just getting darker and darker and darker. Yet there's more glimpses of hope I see at the same time. I mean, once again, it's this duality that we live in. For every action, there's an opposite reaction. And it just always seems like there's this back and forth, and it just gets deeper and deeper and darker. But at the same time, we can all get off the grid. We can go find our own power supplies and start doing solar or wind, or maybe come up with a magnet thing. I don't know. We can grow our own food. We can do these kind of things. We can literally fly to Alaska and go out in the middle of nowhere, set up a homestead, but you're going to have to be able to deal with the elements. And you might die out there if you don't know how to. But I think that enough of us have the ability now and the opportunity that we either do it or we don't. We can continue to let this system grow and give up our control. Because if people think that it was bad in World War II with the concentration camps around the world, I mean, in almost every country, and it was very, very, very bad, it's getting to the point now where with the technologies they have in play, if there's something very dark at the top level that wants to take control and do some nasty stuff, I mean, I can't even fathom the possibilities with technology. Can you imagine being hooked up to some type of machine that kept you just barely alive, and it had your mind thinking that every second was 1,000 years, and you were in some torture chamber where it was like, whatever it was doing? I mean, it's going to get pretty crazy out there, and it's coming out in the movies, that's coming out in the TV shows, these possibilities, these glimpses of futures that could take place. I think we all kind of have to dig in and either say, you will not assimilate me, or if you want to be a part of the system, say, okay, let's go. I'll do whatever you say, master.
This sci-fi is getting so hardcore now, isn't it? I mean, it used to be so innocent. We like what you were just talking about. It reminded me of The Matrix, old Star Trek, the Borg. This is the direction that they want to take it. That's why this stuff comes out. I don't just think it's some writer sitting in his house I'm just going to write a film. There's something about these things that it seems like it comes from a group that's involved in some sort of mysticism, because they seem to know what happens. I don't know. I don't think the devil knows the future, but I think he has a plan. So he puts that plan into things that he controls, and he controls music. Good grief.
He controls a lot of it, not all of it.
Right? So he controls the music industry. He controls Hollywood. That's the name Hollywood is the words holy wood together, and the holy wood is a magic wand. Like Mickey Mouse. It's magic. It's sorcery. That's what Hollywood stands for. It's just why, you've heard the old phrase, television. Why do you think they call it programming? Because they're programming you to think and how to think. It's all about control, and we see this in Revelation 13. It says that it will become mandatory that everybody does assimilate to a system. It's the mark of the beast. It's a beast system, which is controlled by some sort of an idol that is put up in the Jewish temple, controlled by this world leader, the Antichrist. It says that this idol is going to have the Antichrist, the beast will give it power to both speak and also to cause anyone who doesn't take the mark of the beast in the right hand or the forehead to be killed. And that's why we see in the book that there will be beheadings. It's either assimilate or die. That's the situation. We look at this sci-fi stuff, and it seems tame compared to what you read here in the final culmination of the reality of the prophecy. Assimilate or die.
Well, and people right now in the medical industry, sorry to interrupt, there's a gal that just came out in Georgia. She is in the medical industry, and now that she went through a meeting, they said, you have to take these vaccines now or you're going to lose your job. She tried to get a religious exemption. They said no. And also they're going to try and take away people's medical benefits now if they don't vaccinate. There's so many people I know that have been damaged from vaccines. And it's
you don't know what these things.
Even the stuff that's in there, you can see read the inserts. I've read through almost every single vaccine insert that they force feed babies and people alike that are older. And I'm telling you, there's not only thimerosal, there's aluminum, there's different adjuvants, there's formaldehyde, there's glyphosate, there's stuff in there that you wouldn't even want to have as a 300-pound good, healthy adult, in your food, let alone injected directly into your bloodstream. And it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue to let them poison you in order to be a part of this system? Now, as far as the mark of the beast goes, let's take this a little bit further. What is the Greek version or the Hebrew version of the mark of the beast? Is it in the forehead or is it in the head? Because a lot of people think that the Social Security number, if you know your Social Security number, that's a part of the beast system. If you want to take this a step further, you look at what this system does around the world, and people are a part of it in every way, shape, or form. They get up, they go to school, they go to work, they pay their taxes, they go do their job, and all of this feeds this beast system. And even the monetary system is full alchemy. It's creating something out of nothing. It's changing something and transferring something. So this whole system is under the control of literally a pyramid, one-eyed type aspect. And here's another thing too. I think a lot of these symbols that people look at as just evil, like you said earlier, there's, whether it's Satan or whoever its name is that's changing everything around for its own gain, it can take something good like a symbol that actually might have meant something good at one point in time and made it something bad. I don't think that everybody that has if they have a picture of a pyramid like of Pink Floyd in the background, that they're worshiping the devil. I think that people take that a little too extreme. I think you can put intentions into symbols that have good or bad effects. So what is your take on that?
It's funny. I'm a musician myself, and when I was younger, I've had a lot of posters on my wall that had stuff on it that I didn't know what it meant. That doesn't mean that I was a bad person, but what it means is that the artist or that person or whoever controls that person is trying to send a message to the end user, and to have some kind of an effect. We live in a world. It's just so hard these days to even get away from it, but. Just because somebody has, it's kind of like a lot of people wear a cross and they don't even believe in anything. Look at Ozzy Osbourne.
That guy's a trip. Did you see him on Conan the other day? Oh man, he gets on there with his son. I guess they're doing a world tour now or a reality TV show again, and he still talks exactly the same. What's going on? Let me just go over there. How you doing? And he's wearing his glasses, his round purplish tint glasses, and he sits down and he's got this just weird smile on his face, and he's kind of bouncing up and down his chair a little bit, looking kind of weird. And then Conan said something to him, and I don't remember what he said, but then he goes, "Yeah, I'm possessed." And his son looked at him. He said, "No." He said, "No, Dad." And he said, "Okay." And then he started tripping out, and he got this weird look on his face, and he literally did look possessed. But then there was this one part where Conan said, "Do you ever think you want to get back into country, or do you ever want to do a country song? A lot of rock stars now are making a bunch of money doing country music." And he said, "No, I'm the devil," or people look at me as the devil or Satan or something like that. And I was just like, wow. And then Roseanne was on a talk show a while back where she came on the show with red gloves, and she was basically telling the talk show host that when she was a little girl, she wanted fame and fortune more than anything. So she signed a contract with the devil. And several years ago, she got in an accident or something, and she felt like the devil was coming for his due. So she asked the devil if she could get a refi on her soul. And I actually showed that to my parents, and they're a big fan of Roseanne. And I used to watch her TV show back in the day when I was a kid growing up. Kind of shows my age right there. But it was very eerie to me. And they're like, "Oh, she's just joking. It's just a joke. That's the kind of humor that she has." And I'm thinking to myself, I do not think that she is joking. That, to me, she's got the red glove. She's got all the telltale signs. A lot of these people that come out and say they sold their soul for fame and fortune, they do it in a very similar fashion.
Yeah, and it's in every group. The hip hop, the heavy metal, the dark metal, all this stuff. I mean, and it's actors. I've seen a lot of Britney Spears dancers that have they're just something's wrong. And I don't really pay a whole lot of attention because I can't be bothered with it. So a lot of these people. I'll see their pictures or a news story or something, but I just can't be bothered with it because I'm focused on this Bible prophecy stuff, and it really takes all my thinking power. But
It's great work, by the way, man. I'm looking at your stuff. It's beautiful.
Oh, thanks. A lot of people will somehow find out at an early age that they will get fame and fortune if they just sell their soul. I don't even know. Like, I've never personally, I did grow up in the church. I was, I've always sort of been a church kid, but I don't even understand how somebody could even have that idea as a child. But it does happen. It does happen, and Satan will do it. But of course, he never comes through on his real end of the bargain. Gosh. It's just really sad. There is going to be a separation of the sheep and the goats, Rex. All these people, unless they make a change and they repent from that and they give their life to Yeshua, to Jesus Christ, they're going down the wrong path. The true path is narrow. Wide is the gate to destruction. And that's why we see it so much, is because just about everybody's on the wide path. It's a separation of the sheep and the goats, and there's a lot more goats than there are sheep. And I believe that's what the rapture is. And God is going to take his sheep out of the way before he reprimands the goats. And I think that's a pattern that we can see in Scripture. Enoch was taken before the flood. Lot was taken out before Sodom and Gomorrah got destroyed. These patterns are really all over the place. And I think that's why I think it's just getting darker and darker and darker. But, just even looking at the heavens, the darkest part of the night is just before sunrise. So we can expect it to get very dark. And it's not even that dark yet. The tribulation is going to be the darkest point before Jesus comes back, and that's going to be when the sun rises, so to speak. So I think that we're living in just a fantastic time of watching all these things unfold and come to pass. And this is a time of decision, Rex. We got to make a decision of whose side we're on. Because I believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. I think the Bible is clear on that. Of course, other people may have different opinions on that, but I think the Bible is clear that the rapture of true believers happens before this 7-year time of tribulation period. And this is a time to make a decision, and time is running out, because once a person, if let's say they're left behind, they miss the rapture and they have to deal with 7 years, most people won't even make it. I mean, either you've got to assimilate to the Borg, assimilate to the 666 system, which the Bible clearly says that if you make that decision, that is a pledge of allegiance to the beast, and there's no coming back from that. Revelation 14, it says that if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives a mark on his forehead or upon his hand, he shall drink the wine of the wrath of Yahweh, which is the Father, and he shall be tortured with fire and sulfur before the Lamb, and the smoke of their torture goes up forever and ever. And they have no rest, no rest, day or night, for those worshiping the beast in his image, and also anyone who takes the mark of his name. So, I mean, if somebody wants to be put in the position where they're going to be either forced to make a choice of, it says no one will buy or sell unless they assimilate to this system. That means you can't have a job, nor will you be able to get money to buy food. So it's going to be very difficult. You can't have a business, you can't work, because the system is going to become complete. Either join or die. And so people are going to be forced into this. All right, give me the chip. All right, just give me the chip. Well, you just put yourself in hell forever. That's what that is. This is where the idea of 666 came from. And this is how it explains it. So, and we can already see it. People are getting chips in their hand just to get into a security door. So, this is a time to make a decision for Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, because there's separation going to happen. And I really, believe in my heart that I have a hope and an expectation to not have to make any of those other decisions, tribulation decisions, because I'll be taken out prior to that. And I just really hope and pray that people do that. Romans 10:9 says you got to believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, and you shall be saved. Your name will be written in the book of life, and therefore you have an expectation of an escape. And that's not to say that times might get hard before that. I've got a little bit of freeze-dried food. I've got a little bit of bottled water that I've stored up. It's wise to be prepared. I never tell anybody, oh, it's just going to be great and we're going to escape to the heavens. It could get rough. But I don't believe that I'll have to make a choice for that chip, for that mark of the beast.
I had an interview last year with a real nice guy that actually took the chip as a part of the transhuman tour. He ran for president as the transhuman candidate, and nice guy. And I don't have the same beliefs that he does. We talked about some things, and he was real passionate about wanting everybody to be chipped. And literally people that had positions of, let's say you're a pilot, well, you'd have even extra microchips in your head, because that way, if you thought you might want to kill yourself with everybody on the plane, well, the microchips would rewrite your cerebral cortex, and you just go back to normal. Yes, I will drive back home now. Things will be fine. Fly home. Yay. I love
Total
myself
control.
and everybody. Just real, hey, that's what he thinks, and he thinks that could save lives, and I get it. I will understand and listen to that side of you. Personally, I am into free will. Do what you feel is right, and if you genuinely feel that is right, I think that if the intent is there, that's great. Like, for example, if I see somebody do something that is considered a sin in the Bible, I'm not going to judge that person because, first of all, I'm not their judge. And second of all, their conscience is their judge in a sense. I mean, how could you judge somebody that's literally crazy if they don't realize what they're doing? I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some mechanism to it or some formula, but it just seems as if people used common sense more often, they'd get along a lot better. I just tell everybody the best rule out there, in my opinion, don't tread on me, and I won't tread on you. You don't hurt me. I'm not going to hurt you. You don't come mess with me. I'm not going to come mess with you. Everybody's going to be fine. I mean, that goes.
Yeah. Golden rule. Do as to, and Jesus, who said that? Jesus.
Hello.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How obvious. And people don't do that. And that's what causes problems.
I mean, aren't we evolved enough yet with everything that we've learned to realize that is the golden rule? And if we could just follow that, everything else, in my opinion, would come into place, in my opinion. But let me ask you, I'm on your website right now, erfministries.com. Great website. You've got a really cool section here where you've got different graphs and charts that you actually put together. And I wanted to talk about the Trump one that I was just looking at here. Let me pull this one back up. The only Trump believers should presently hope for. Now, do you think Donald Trump, him getting in office, was prophecy? I interviewed a nice gentleman the other day that feels he could be kind of the archetype of King Cyrus talked about in the Bible. And is there any connection of Trump to this graph right here?
Yeah, the reason why I made that is because I think I made that earlier in early 2016, and it just seemed like the right, the religious right, the Christians were thinking that Trump was going to come and save the day, save the world, kind of a thing, and he would be sort of a savior figure. But in what, like the things that we've discussed, it's getting dark. There is a plan. There is a plan in place. Bible prophecy is not going to stop because nobody's just going to rise up and be and fix everything. And so that's why I made that. And the reason that's sort of a play on words, because what I'm saying here is that we need to study the feast days because prophecy happens on them. And I believe that the rapture happens at the Feast of Trumpets, which Paul said in 1 Corinthians 15:52, that, we will be changed from this corruptible to incorruptible, mortal to immortal, will be caught up into the heavens at what's called the last trump. And that's a shofar. That's a sound. That's not an actual instrument. That is a sound. It's a blast. And it's the 100th shofar. They blow 100 shofar blasts at the Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah. It's in the fall. It's the day that this Revelation 12 sign happens on. And that verse actually, Revelation 12:5, it says rapture, harpazo in the Greek. So it's like amazing correlation. You can't make this stuff up. So what I'm saying is don't put all your hope in a man to come fix everything, because it's not going to happen. If you're going to look for a Trump to save you, it's going to be this one that's in the Bible, which is a blast that calls true believers into heaven before it gets bad. But I think that he is totally being used, right? And there's different Trump. That one shows that there are different Trumps in the Bible. The first Trump is a Pentecost Trump. The last Trump is the Feast of Trumpets or Rosh Hashanah. And there's the Great Trump, which is in Matthew 24, which talks about is the second coming after the tribulation period. So I was just talking about trumpets on that one. But I think that Donald Trump is going to cause division. I think he's already doing that. We see that the left is already in a state of denial. And they're fighting, and George Soros is funding all kinds of protests. And there's a recount going on right now in Michigan to try to, maybe possibly change the outcome before Trump gets in, because Trump wants to do some major changes. And I think it's going to cause division. And remember what I said earlier about this eclipse that goes all the way across the United States?
Yeah.
That's like division. That says division to me. It cuts the United States in half. And I think that's what Trump is going to do. He's going to cause a divide.
Civil war, possibly?
I don't know if let's see what happens on January 21st or 20th, if he gets in or not. The liberals are still fighting. They're still fighting to take it from him. And if that gets overturned somehow, and I don't think it will, because recounts never seem to do anything, but when he got elected, and it was really pretty. That was like a pretty hardcore week, if you remember. I was starting to think, oh my gosh, we're gonna have civil war. Now things have calmed down a little bit. I'm sort of like getting out of that mindset, but we'll see what he does if he gets in, and when he gets in, we'll see what he starts to do, because he's said that he's going to do some major changes with border patrol, with building a wall, immigration. Also, he wants to. He said that he wants mosques to be what's the word? Like sort of like security or
like categorized as a higher security threat.
Right. Look who does this every time, right? So like, why aren't we? Why does everybody, when they get on a plane, everybody's treated equally? It doesn't make sense. Like, you're not even looking at the facts of who has got the ideology and who is the higher threat. So he says he's going to change a lot of this stuff, and we're going to actually put a name on those who make themselves an enemy of America. And that goes against tolerance and all this stuff. This is going to be an interesting year, Rex. I mean, from all this Bible prophecy, possible wars, Israel and all this stuff. But then you've got the Trump situation. That's a whole other thing. How do you see this? My friend Trey Smith made this video about the Trump prophecy and Cyrus. And it was an epic success, this video that he made. And he knows more about that than I do. And I watched it, but I'd have to watch it again to get refreshed on it. But man, it's amazing how that worked. That he got in against all odds.
That was another thing that was portrayed in a Simpsons episode about 12 years ago.
Right, I saw that on the escalator.
Yep. And then you saw him going down the escalator also, just like in the cartoon, and it had him split screen where it looked like they were playing off of the same skit.
Yeah.
And then doesn't he get taken out in The Simpsons also?
Oh, an assassination attempt. Yeah.
And there's this article out now that supposedly Donald Trump is meeting with people to get rid of the Federal Reserve. So I'm wondering if all this stuff is being played out to kind of subconsciously program people for that possibility once again. And if that is, something that does take place, talk about blow it's going to have on the archetype of the pro-American mindset. That will just completely put a huge, how do I put that? Because you look at JFK, supposedly JFK was taken out because he wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve. I've heard other things too, like he was going to expose aliens and other stuff. But if the most tangible, in my opinion, is that combined with a lot of the defense contractors he was pissing off. But if that's the case, and if Donald Trump really isn't going to play ball with the Federal Reserve and these other individuals, well, is he going to be in a position where something like that might happen to him? I don't know. It's a very interesting thing to think about, and I certainly hope nothing like that happens. But it makes one wonder with the way the media portrays certain events.
I think you're definitely onto something. There's a bigger pattern than just JFK. I think you're absolutely right about that. That was his intention. He knew that it was a corrupt financial system. And but go back a little bit farther. Lincoln was killed for the same reason. He was fighting the banksters, and he created Lincoln greenbacks. He created his own money to take the power away from the banksters. Garfield killed for the same reason. So if Trump goes down that road, man.
But then once again, that article that I saw, that could be just a PSYOP article, because it seems like 90% of the media out there now that comes out is just some rehashed, made up article. You'll see things now where there's going to be a video conference and it's going to be in a country like Iraq, and they're going to use these subtitles, and supposedly the prime minister says that the Anunnaki are shape-shifting right now on, out there on the coast, getting a suntan at the same time, pretty much. Oh yeah, we'll see the words right there. It says it, when they can't even really translate it. It's just, there's so much false information out there. It just makes you wonder, is this all just a staged PSYOP event? Is it really going to happen? Are they doing that so if something does happen, they can say, well, once again, they tried to get out of the Federal Reserve, and see what happens if you try and do that? You die, even if you're the president.
It makes no difference. I mean, they'll just put somebody else in power. Life means nothing. These elites worship death. That's what they like. Look at the trail behind the Clintons. They don't care. Nobody means anything to them. They're so selfish. Yeah, we're dealing with some serious evil here. Evil with a smile.
Welcome to the New World Order. They love you.
I would imagine that you would agree with that. It's Trump's got to be really careful. He's got to be really careful because I was listening to Perry Stone. If you know he's a pastor that has also had certain visions and dreams, and he said that there was two things that were going to happen with Trump that he saw in a vision, and one of them was an assassination attempt. And I forget what the other one was, but it's already come to pass and it was right. It's too bad I don't have that in my brain right now. But so the next one that I'm waiting on, I put this in my little folder of like, well, let's see what Perry said, and if it comes to pass, he said that there's going to be an assassination attempt. I don't rule it out. I don't want that to happen. But I don't rule it out because I think the elites completely wanted this election to be against the Bush dynasty and the Clinton dynasty. They wanted Jeb to be in against Hillary. That's what they wanted. And Trump is an outsider. And so they don't know what to do. But they certainly don't want him. Either they've got to assimilate him somehow or take him out. I'm not a political analyst, but I don't see how they're going to let it. I don't see how they're going to let this slide. What do you think?
Well, see, I'm very skeptical once again because it was on The Simpsons 12 years ago that he made it in. So it's like they already knew. So therefore, they already knew he was going to make it in. It's either they could see the future, or they had some supercomputer that was. They've got these supercomputers now that can literally calculate quadrillions of floating points per second. And if you take that with some very good artificial intelligence software and then pattern recognition software, combine it with the World Wide Web, what people look up, everything else, and then all the data that's been researched over the years with physiology, psychology, true history, etc. Well, you could come up with some pretty cool models and future time map predictions. So with the technology that they have, obviously it's going to be a lot easier for them to predict the future. Yet I think it's all a part of the plan. I don't really, my gut's telling me that it's all a part of the plan. It was supposed to happen. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So if you're skeptical, and I think it is healthy, I try to remain on that side of things. Skeptical, but with a balance.
But I thought Hillary was going to win. So if that, you know what I mean?
Well, she was supposed to. I thought that she did too. I thought that she was, I thought the elites were just going to put her in, period. I thought that they would rig the election or whatever and just make it happen. So this is a total shock. Oh, that's what the other prediction was. Perry Stone, this is before the election. He said that, that the next president would be number 45, right? Obama's 44. Mm-hmm. He said in Hebrew, okay, just like the Greek, Hebrew and Greek are both very mathematical languages. Like the letters also equal numbers. Like A would be 1, B would be 2. So if in Hebrew, if you look at the number 45, it's a number, but it also is a word, and the word is ma, and ma in Hebrew means what? And so what Perry Stone said, he says. However, whatever happens with this election, the majority of people are going to be saying, "Ma, what? What happened? Look what happened." I mean, when Trump got in, the news, all of the media, all of everybody just had it completely wrong. they're absolutely shocked. They're saying, "What? Trump got in?" So Perry Stone was right about that. This Hebrew word of 45, it meant what? The president, 45. What? So anyway, so then the next thing that I'm waiting for is like, is there going to be an assassination attempt? But my question is to you, like with this whole Simpsons thing, is if you sort of take a skeptical position, as I try to do as well, do you think that maybe like the creators of the Simpsons, if they're involved in some kind of like, there's something going on, and it's not just a cartoon there, do you think Trump's not an insider, and like he was already part of the system and they knew that he was going to do that? And if so, then why was the fight so crazy?
Well, obviously charades, they can do anything they want in the media. It can be like the WWE. They can be pretending to break each other's backs on the mat, but then behind
That's
the
a
scenes,
really good point. That's a good point.
And I've seen video footage, plenty of it out there, where before Trump was fighting against Hillary as president, he was boasting for her several years ago when she was running for president. And there's plenty of clips saying, "Oh, the Clintons, they're amazing people. We hang out together. They're good people. They're good people. Blah 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 blah." There's pictures of them all, hugging each other. And yeah, I get it. There were inside circles, people in politics, money, big corporations. It's all intertwined. They're all partying together and stuff. And then yeah, when they do kind of go head to head, people can be narcissistic enough to where they're just going to throw that person under the bus. I mean, are there real friends in politics? I don't know, but I'm not in politics. So, I've even noticed here just a YouTube channel with 60,000 very astute subscribers, mind you, but there's some of the comments that I read, I don't think they're from the subscribers necessarily, because there's some very ignorant people out there that are just, you can't please everybody. No matter how good of a person you are, your intentions are, there's going to be somebody out there that just doesn't like you because maybe you look like somebody that he knew growing up that picked on him or something else. There's just always some reason that there's somebody out there that doesn't agree with you. And that's a good thing, because if we all agreed on everything, would be like the Borg, would be assimilated. So I appreciate constructive criticism and stuff like that. But there's always those few haters out there, whether they're just jealous or dark or evil or whatever it is, that they're going to try and
drunk.
Drunk, yeah, whatever.
I mean, never discount that some people commenting are on something.
Oh, yeah.
Never discount that.
Yeah, they're like huffing glue. Oh, get this guy and some. How about that one gal that actually drinks paint? She loves it. My Strange Addiction. I don't know why some people watch that show. I was flipping through the channels the other day, and all of a sudden I stopped for a second, and this lady was literally drinking paint, and she does that a couple times a day. And
how do you get started with that?
Yeah, I mean, what do you do? Just one day you're like, that looks good. I'm going to put that in my cereal.
I bet that color tastes good.
Wow, man. Talk about mind control special there, but we're kind of jumping off topic here, I know, but this is great. I'm looking at a sweet graph right now. The 7-year tribulation. What is this?
Well, okay, so the bar is the 22 chapters of the book of Revelation. And what does it say? So basically, I sort of just broke it up in parts. At the top, so it's 3 signs for those left behind. So if you're left behind, there's a little fish going up in 4. I believe that's where the rapture is. And so 3 signs for those left behind. I believe that a temple needs to be built in Jerusalem. That's the yellow at the top. It says tribulation temple built in Jerusalem, and then we've got the verses there. And then you've got to have the temple is going to be defiled by the Antichrist, and the verses are there. He's going to, like we talked about, the mark of the beast is going to be implemented and controlled by some kind of an idol that has power, and it's going to be set up in the temple. And then it's 666. The latter half of the tribulation period, this 7 years, is going to, there's a mandatory choice: assimilate or die, take the mark of the beast or die. And so these are just 3. I said one day I was going to make a graphic of like, here's 3 signs that you're in the tribulation period. You're going to see the temple be built in Jerusalem again, because the temple has to be defiled by the Antichrist, and the 666 system is going to be run from there. So it's just sort of an overall graphic. So sometimes when I'm doing a Bible study, what I do is I just open up Photoshop and I just start thinking, I want to see what's in my head, and then have something to show for it to look at later. So that's what a lot of this stuff is.
Now this is your famous. This is literally famous. I think this is kind of what got you on the map back in 2011. Was your breaking open just the detailed analysis when you just took this to a whole other level, essentially.
Well, it was amazing. At first, I didn't really know what it was. What happened was I was in a forum. I wasn't a YouTuber. I wasn't really making videos. I would play, a guitar or something every once in a while, but I wasn't doing this. I didn't have a computer that could handle it. And but I was going to these end times forums and checking stuff out. And somebody put up a screenshot of something that looked like this with Virgo and Leo, but the planets were different because it was a screenshot of 2011, and that was in the future. So and I looked at it, and that person in the forum said something inaccurate, and they said this is the Revelation 12 sign, and it had like Saturn and Venus in the belly of Virgo, and that would be twins, and there was no 12 stars at her head. But I found that was interesting. I said, wow, I think it's close. Let me go into my astronomy program because I already had one. I had this one, Stellarium, and I just went into the future, and I did. It didn't take long from 2011 to go forward 6 years, and then I saw these planets, and then I had to figure out, how am I going to interpret this? And I've learned a lot in the last 5 years, but I took this and I it wasn't this exact thing here. I mean, same look, same screenshot, but I didn't have all the Photoshop, words on it because I didn't have Photoshop back then. But anyway, I put it in the forum, and it was a forum. People were already talking about the blood moons and talking about Star of Bethlehem and talking about things, and then all of a sudden, people start trying to find the Revelation 12 sign. So I put that on there. I said, I think this looks better than the other post. And it just has taken off from there. And a lot of peer review has been done on this. Nobody can find anything that looks better. I mean, to line up the verses. This is what the verse says about the sun, the moon, the planets, and the action, the activity that takes place with a birth. So I think we've kind of landed on this is it, right? I had to start somewhere. I don't know if I was the first one to find it. I was the first one to find it that I, found it for myself. I actually Googled it. I was looking for it before bothering with the program. I Googled it first. And I never found, anything saying September 23rd. So I went into the program myself and found it. But that's not to discount that other people aren't looking at the same time. And, who's to say Mark Biltz discovered the whole blood moon thing first? He was, but somebody had to put it out there. So, for myself, I know how I think that's why, God wanted me to find it for myself so that I would get into it and take it seriously. If it was somebody else's thing, maybe I wouldn't do so much work about it. So those are some pictures of some solar eclipses that I took with my camera.
Man, that's cool. You must have a nice camera setup.
Yeah, I got a 70 to 200 lens on a Sony body, and so I zoomed in as much as I could and took some pictures. Those aren't filters. I just put different colors on there. Just for fun, just to make the image look neat. But that's a partial solar eclipse, and I just think it's neat that you could see the sunspots. And that's a blood moon that I took. I should have made that red a little bit darker there with the words, or a little bit brighter. But that was the second eclipse. That was the second blood moon of the tetrad that happened in 2014 and 2015. That's the October 2014. Yeah. Oh, it's right there. Blood moon number 2. Not all of them were in my area, but a couple of them were, and so I took that shot. So, why not put it on my website? I was like proud of it. I'm like, dude, I took a picture of a blood moon.
Beautiful image. And
thanks.
Was this portrayed in the Bible as well in some type of prophecy?
What happened in 2014 and 2015 is that, again, on the feast days, everything it's all about these feast days. In Leviticus 23, there's 7 special days. And so what happened in 2014 and 2015, you had 4 blood moons in a row on Passover and Sukkot, which is also called Tabernacles. It's the last feast day. Passover that's the one that Jesus died at Passover on the cross. Everything happens on the feast days, man. And this Revelation 12 sign happens on the Feast of Trumpets, which is a feast day. So 2 years in a row, blood moons on Passover and Sukkot. And if you click out of that one, and I'll show you a different one to go to, this prophecy is actually really big. So each one of these little red sort of dots is a tetrad. So we've got these tetrads, and these are tetrads that fall on the feast days. Well, if you just look at the end result there, like you've got the 2014 and 15 one, you've got 1967 and 68, and you've got 1949 and 1950. Well, each one of those is either on or very close to things that happened with the nation of Israel. Like we looked at that other chart, that they started coming back in their land at 1947, and there was the war in 1948, and then there was a tetrad in 49 and 50. But then also the 6-Day War, where Israel got their capital back was in 1967. Well, there was one of these tetrads in 1967, 68. But it also goes it goes way back. It goes like the time of Christopher Columbus. Is the next one back there? He sailed the ocean blue, 1492. Well, in 1493 and 1994, that's when the Jews were getting kicked out of Spain, and that's why Christopher Columbus sailed. So there's something about these things that was connected to the Jews. But the bottom line is that what I believe that these blood moons are is Joel 2:31. It says that they're a warning. It says that the sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the day of the Lord, which is that 7-year time frame that is going to be really bad that I'm talking about. It's called the tribulation, the day of the Lord, the time of judgment. The Bible says in Joel 2:31 that these are harbingers. It says that the sun will be turned to darkness. That's a total solar eclipse. And the moon to blood. That's a total lunar eclipse. And it says that these will be warnings before the day of the Lord. And the day of the Lord is this 7-year time frame that we're talking about. And so I believe that what happened in 2014 and 2015 with these blood moons is that it was a warning. It's a warning that it's coming, because God always warns. He wants people to turn from their wickedness. And I'm giving you a warning. I'm giving you a warning. I'm giving you a warning. So that's what I think, that those events of the blood moons, and there were solar eclipses involved as well, which you can see in some of these other charts. It's a warning. And then you got this other sign in the heavens in Revelation 12 that happens September 23rd, 2017. That's not a warning anymore.
So the warning stage is over.
Right. Warning stage happened a couple years ago. The next one, if you study what it means, there's a solar eclipse on that one. It's amazing, Rex, is that the last one, the fourth one, which happened in September 2015, that one was seen over Israel, but also it was bigger. It was a super moon. When the moon is at its closest point at perigee, it was a super blood moon. Those are super rare, and it was seen over Israel. So that was the warning right there. And so that's what I've been compiling with all these charts over the years, just show that God is giving us signals. So that shows an overall eclipses that I took and just put on a timeline so you can just see the patterns, because I think it makes a nice representation. And I made a new one, which I put as my YouTube channel banner, which goes all the way to 2034. Really cool stuff. Did I lose you?
No, that's sharp. I'm pulling it up right now, and it was starting to freeze up again there for a second. So is it showing the YouTube channel now?
Yeah, I see it. If you like right click on that and do view image, it'll get bigger on your screen. And on here, what I did was I put the Star of David on the ones that are seen from Israel to try to see more into the pattern there. And look what happens right around the Revelation 12 sign, sort of under my picture. But you've got 5 lunar eclipses in a row related to Israel. 2 are partial, but 3 are total. And if that would begin the tribulation period, I mean, it just seems like an amazing pattern to me.
I got to tell you, Scott, this is one of the most detailed charts I have seen to date of the prophecy timelines, Revelation. Gil Broussard has some excellent material as well. He's done a real good job putting stuff together. And I really like how you brought the way you just make it easy to understand. It's very fluid. It's very smooth. You've got over 55,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel, Eternal Rhythm Flow. You've got an incredible website. You've got tons of charts. You don't have any commercials on your YouTube channel. So, I mean, you put in a ton of work, effort into your ministry, and I certainly appreciate what you do. Before we close out tonight, is there anything that you'd like to share with us that maybe I should have asked but didn't?
Oh, we could have. We clearly are on the same page with a lot of this stuff. We could have talked all kinds of different directions, and it's just fun to see where it went anyway. But, I would just hope that people know and just wake up, I mean, that's what your whole ministry or your job, what you're doing here with the Leak Project is you just have a heart to tell people, wake up, and the end game for me is that I believe that the Messiah is coming. And so that's my message, because that's the message that I get out of the Bible, is these are all signs. It's all supposed to happen like this. It's coming. There's going to be a separation of sheep and goats, and then there's judgment on the goats, and it's coming. So I just would hope that people find salvation, like I said earlier, Romans 10:9-10. It's just really simple. It starts there with believing that the one who died on the cross was in the grave for 3 days and defeated death and raised from the grave. That's the Son of God. He's the one that offers us the free gift of salvation. So that's the message that I want to tell people if they haven't heard that yet. That's the gospel. We're supposed to spread the gospel, tell people he's coming.
Right on. And Scott, I got to say, I really appreciate your approach towards things. You seem to be, you're very passionate about what you talk about. You've done some incredible research, and you also, when I've asked you questions that, maybe didn't fit your typical, upbringing and what you think, you said, yeah, that's a possibility. I'm not going to count that out. I'm going to stay balanced, but I'm also going to stay focused. And I really appreciate that, not just blowing something off right off the bat without even having oh yeah, that's a possibility. So I think that helps people grow. Once again, I certainly don't have all the answers. I am more agnostic personally, meaning just, I don't know. I want to know. I really want to know. And, talk about polar opposites there. That's like, oh, you're a Gnostic and you're agnostic. That's got to be just a total mind mess up with you. But hey, I think it's kind of helped me grow along the way. I was raised Christian, and I used to go to church on Sunday. I read the Bible thoroughly. Revelation, I read that book more than any of the other books. I've even researched some other stuff outside of the Bible, books that were taken out of possibly the original canon, and also the Nag Hammadi treaties, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and other scriptures and ancient texts. So hopefully the answers will, hopefully I'll have no question someday and say, yes, I've got the answers and I don't need to have any more. But until then, I'm going to keep searching. And that's why we started the Leak Project, to get information out there, to speak with people like you, Scott. You're just a great guy. I really appreciate your work. Please check out Eternal Rhythm Flow on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Become a subscriber. Also check out his website. Now, your website is also going to be erfministries.com. You add updates all the time. Thanks for everything, Scott. It was great to speak with you. I really appreciate you coming on with us.
Rex, I really appreciate you letting me be a voice within your work. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and to talk to you. I feel a kinship, and we'll do it again sometime. Thank you so much, man.
Absolutely. We'll do it again soon. And folks, check out leakproject.com, youtube.com/clandestine time lord. Be the change you want to see. This is Rex Bear. Talk to you soon.
And two, describe something that is coming in the fall of 2017. And what it is it's a constellation and planet alignment that has never happened before and it won't happen again. It's very specific, and it's been found in an astronomy program. I was looking for it in 2011, and then I put it on the internet, and here we are today. It's got a lot of peer review. It's not going away. It's just getting bigger.
Oh, it is. I had an interview with David Mead over a year ago, and he touched on that date. There's been a lot of other people that have used that information. I know I had Jason Jeffries on the show a while back that kind of showed the charts and the stars, the signs in heaven that correlate to Revelation as well. There's a lot of talk about Planet X, Wormwood, Nemesis, the Red Kachina, Nibiru, whatever name you want to put towards this. Let's talk about some of the charts and data you have put together for 2017, because what you showed me off air that just blew my mind, and I know it's on your YouTube channel as well, Eternal Rhythm Flow.
Sure. Yeah, I've been looking into because of this planet star constellation alignment is it's in the Bible, and it has to do with the end times. The scriptures say that John, when he's called up to heaven to have this vision of the final 7 years, he says one of the things that he sees up there, he says there's a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon at her feet and 12 stars at her head, but she's in labor and labor pains to give birth to a child. And then it says that that child that she gives birth to is going to be caught up to God and to his throne. But it actually uses, when it says caught up in Revelation 12:5, it says the Greek word is harpazo, and that's the word that we get rapture from. But it also says that there is a dragon in the scenario. This is an end time play, and that dragon tries to devour the child when it's born, but he doesn't get the child because the child is raptured. But then Michael stands up and he goes to war with the dragon. And this is the tribulation period. So we're looking at a rapture tribulation stuff in this chapter. And what's amazing is that John says it happens with our sun, our moon, our stars, and the wandering stars are our planets. So this isn't just a dreamy thing. This is real. And so what do astronomers and researchers do? They look at this stuff in astronomy programs, telescopes. It's real. And it just so happens that in 2017, what looks like what John wrote is actually in the sky in our lifetime.
Well, that's wild. And if that actually happens, do you think that there's going to be earth changes, cataclysms, chaos, etc. here?
Yes. In reading the book of Revelation, it does say that at the time when these events happen, when the sign happens, all inside this time period, I mean, the elites are going to be hiding in the mountains and the caves because the cataclysms, there's 4 horsemen that come out, there's war and pestilence and economic disaster. And then, I made a video yesterday, and we know, Gil Broussard, David Mead talk about Planet X. You talk about Planet X. You've been doing this for a long time. And anyone who's done any research about that knows that if this planet is, let's just say, 10 times the size of Earth, and if it gets too close to us, the magnetic pull is going to make some changes. It's going to be earthquakes and possible flooding and all that. So if all of this is what it looks like, 2017 is a year of some changes.
Astrophysicist, I think Mike Brown from Caltech, came out several years ago and downgraded Pluto with several other astrophysicists, essentially. And now he's out saying that there is this ginormous planet outside of the Kuiper Belt that's so big, it's actually causing the solar system to tilt. And it's way, way, way out there. So if something is closer than that object, or, something actually gets even within a certain distance, I guess, like Pluto or something, I can't even imagine what type of catastrophic events could take place. And there's a lot of people that feel Planet X is a lot closer than that. Personally, I am still agnostic towards it being in the solar system because I haven't seen enough proof that it is for sure. Now, is there a Planet X out there? Well, definitely there's plenty of other planets out there, but I still am kind of questioning the whole 3,600-year orbit, but it seems like there's a whole bunch of information out there that's pointing to some pretty serious possibilities from some enormous planets that we haven't seen the past X amount of years.
Right. A lot of what we do in sort of studying this Planet X thing is we have to put our faith in other researchers because, it's a massive subject and not everybody has the time to go there. So, we look to the experts and we see what they think, and then we have to make a decision on, is this real or not? And depending on the weight of evidence, this is not something that we can see with the naked eye. We just got some programs, Google Skyview. And when we're looking at these things, we just have to take it with a grain of salt and say, is it there or is NASA just, playing with us? Who knows? Right. But so it's one of those things where you're just not going to know until it happens. But it certainly is an interesting subject that we like to talk about.
It is. And I really like the way that you brought that up and the way you worded that. I think that was very eloquent and balanced, and that's awesome. Now, you also put together some really cool charts that you were showing me that had some different timelines that also correlated with this 2017 date. And if we could get into that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure.
So and you did this all yourself, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, the information is just history, but I put it on a timeline to take a look at it. The Bible says that because the Jews rejected their Messiah, that they would be dispersed, their temple would be destroyed, but a new dispensation would take place, and that the Father would put his attention on the church, which are Christians, but then he's going to put his attention back on the Jews to bring them back to himself. And this prophecy was given in Daniel 9:24. it's the prophecy of Daniel's 70 weeks. And the 70th week has not been completed yet. The 69 weeks from that prophecy have been completed when Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. But then he was cut off. His crucifixion, his death, burial, resurrection, the gospel occurred. That's what the gospel is those three things. And then the church was conceived at Pentecost, and so things changed. However, when the church is taken out, the rapture, the bookends is Pentecost was the conception of the church, and the rapture, I believe, happens on the Feast of Trumpets, which are the bookends of this church age dispensation. And once the church is gone, then the Father will put his attention back on the Jews. It's a time of judgment to reprimand them, but to bring them back to himself and to prove to him that they were wrong about who the Messiah was, because they didn't believe that Yeshua, Jesus, was the Messiah. So we've got this one final week, which is a period of 7 years that is coming, which is going to be a time of judgment. If you read the book of Revelation, and also Daniel, all the prophets, Joel, Ezekiel, Isaiah, they all talk about this day of the Lord, which is pretty harsh. But we know that he's going to slowly, these things take time. He's going to slowly bring Israel back into their land, into Israel. And that's what this timeline shows here. Theodore Herzl, back in 1897, down here at the bottom, he created a Congress to begin bringing the Jews back to their homeland, which was prophesied for them to be their promised land. And Theodore Herzl, he says he's the creator and the head of the World Zionist Organization for its first 7 years. And he wrote in his diary on September 3rd, 1897, just after this Congress met together, he said, "Were I to sum up the Basel Congress," this is Basel, Switzerland, is where they met. He said, "If I were to sum up the Basel Congress in a word which I shall guard against pronouncing publicly, it would be this: at Basel, I founded the Jewish state. If I said this out loud today, it would be greeted with universal laughter. But in 5 years, perhaps, and certainly 50 years, everyone will perceive it." That's the beginning of this timeline over here, 1897. Now, what I should preface is that there is also a prophecy of 120 years. And if we look in Luke, the Messiah said that the end times are going to be just like it was in the days of Lot and Noah. And as we know, Lot was removed from a judgment that was going to happen to Sodom and Gomorrah. Fire rained down, fire and brimstone. So he was righteous, and so he was removed. He didn't have to go through that. Noah also was the only righteous man on the planet back then. The earth was destroyed with water, but he was safeguarded through that so he could repopulate. So there's going to be this separation of people who are going to get judged on, and those who escape it. But Jesus also said in Matthew 24, he said there's a lesson of a fig tree. The fig tree is Israel, and this is a parable and analogy of Israel coming back into the land. He says, "From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as the branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. Also, when you see all these things," and he was just describing the beginning of the tribulation period, "you know that it is near at the very gates. Truly I say to you that this generation shall not pass away until these things take place." So there is a generation coming that will see the end times, but it's the generation that sees the fig tree blossom. So that's what this has been called over here, is the first budding of the fig tree, 1897. So but there's got to become a finalization of that. Now, so we're looking at, and also in Genesis, God told Noah that 120 years before the flood, he said that I will not strive with man, for his days are 120 years. And so that was a prophecy of 120 years before the flood. Well, if we look at this number 120, it means in the Bible down here, it's a divinely appointed period of probation. Well, if we count 120 years, we end up the 0 year is 2017. And this is the fig tree coming, Israel coming back into their land. The Balfour Declaration was declared in 1970, which allowed the Jews to start coming back into Israel. And then the UN General Assembly voted to create Israel in 1947. And of course, the Arabs didn't like that, and so they went to war in 1948. You have the Battle of the War of Independence, of which Israel was created in one day there. But then in another 20 years, you had 1967. In 1947 and 1948, Israel got the ability to get the land back, called Israel again. But they didn't have the capital. The Arabs still controlled the capital, Jerusalem. Well, in 1967, that's what happened there. Another war, the 6-Day War, and they got their capital back. But so they're getting more and more. They got the land, then they got the capital. But the Bible says that they've got to get the temple too. This is where we're at. We're in between these things. They don't have that yet. They don't have the Temple Mount. I think that's what's coming next. You bring it to another Jubilee cycle, which is another sort of divinely appointed period of time, which is 50 years. And there's another Jubilee in here, 1917 to 1967. That's a Jubilee. 1967 to 2017. That's a Jubilee. So if this pattern is correct of what's coming, everything happens on the sevens: 1897, 1917, 1947, 1967. These are all agreements with nations. What's the UN General Assembly going to do